January 25th Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation so we have some idea of who's been regularly joining the calls. And I'll pause here for a minute before jumping into the agenda. If you have something you'd like to add, feel free to do that now. Chime in with something, you can tag it into the any other business, or if something comes up along the way, feel free to jump in. So I'll just pause if there's something somebody wants to add to the agenda. We don't have any lightning talks scheduled yet, but if you have one that you'd like to give, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll get those tagged into the schedule and shared with the community that way. All right, we'll take a look at the recent user-raised issues and see what's come in since the last one of these calls. Looks like there's been 2 that have come in since then, and they're all getting a fair bit of conversation. We can probably skip going into detail on those today, unless there's something in this list that people feel needs to be called out. Right. Jump back to our agenda, and we'll take a look at the release roadmap. So that brings us to the 0.30 release. Pete, do you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we imported all the new OpenJDK levels. We had a hiccup for JDK 8 because we hadn't realized they'd moved repos. So on JDK 8, they're in Mercurial, and they had a forest of repos, and they're planning to move to Git, but not for 2 releases out. But what happened in December is they moved their forest of repos into a single mono repo, and we missed that. So thanks to Jason to putting together what we needed to do to get the latest JDK 8 levels. Anyways, so we got all the versions. We had to make changes for Java 17 because some of the stuff that we'd already seen in JDK 18 was backported, but since we'd already done the PRs to support that in 18, we were able to backport those to 17. Everything looks good in the open, but there were a lot of, I'm not sure about a lot, but there were some last-minute changes. So rather than tagging for the GA, what I've done is tagged a release candidate tag. And my plan was to wait for the Semro builds and the triage on those builds and make sure everything looks good before we actually tag the GA.
When do you expect the Semro builds to be complete?
Well, we were hoping they'd be done already, but there's some problems running those builds. I'm hoping they'll be resolved soon, but I don't know for sure.
Is it, when you say hopefully resolve soon, are we talking, worst case this week or worst case longer than that?
Maybe see what Adam has to say when we get to his section.
Yep.
Best case, if we get them launched today, we'd know how the testing looks by tomorrow or so. But if we can't get them launched today, then hopefully by the end of the week.
Okay, that keeps us within our 2-week intended release period, I believe. So I think that should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, even if we tagged a GA without those Semru builds, I think most people are waiting for the Semru builds and not for our tags.
Yeah, it's a bit of a chicken egg dance, right? So, okay. So sounds like we're in reasonable shape for 0.30, assuming we can get those builds through this week. So that brings us to 0.31, Java 18 release.
Yeah, we are making progress. We had 47 issues last week, and now we're down to 31 issues. So things are getting resolved, but there's still more to go. There are 2 blockers on the JIT team. So when we try to run testing, we crash fairly frequently. So we kind of need to get those resolved before we can run reliable testing nightly.
Do we have a sense of when those will be resolved?
I don't.
Nazim was making progress on one of them. I haven't heard from him since the weekend on that, so I've asked him for an update. And then the other one, Henry's just making some progress on that today, so too soon to say, but wheels are moving slowly on those.
Is somebody tagging in pages and pages of blank content into this document? Block editing? All right. Sorry about that, Daryl. It seemed to be somebody was hitting enter.
The version I have open in front of me only has the number of pages you'd expect, so I don't know if it's...
Yeah, I just deleted a bunch of extra content, so if it happens again, we'll have to be more restrictive on the editing of these things. All right, so there's the 2. Sorry, you said Nazim is making progress on the one. I'm sorry, I missed the status on the other.
Yeah, Henry's just getting on that today, actually, so we'll hopefully have some updates on that soon.
Additionally, we have the 032 plan. I had looked at that earlier. There were 4 things marked as blockers here as well. Are these also getting looked at and progressing? This one hasn't had an update in a while, but it claims.
I don't know the latest on these on the 0.32 blockers. I'll have to, other than 14115, where I'm making some slow progress on, but I'll have to check on the status of the others.
It's one of those things where we do want to track these as well. Just they're not technically blockers, but they are things that are high priority that we move forward and do want to have a good handle on before we do the 18 release.
Some of them probably need to be revisited. Like the second one I saw in your list was from an external user who hasn't provided us any more information, so we can't recreate it, and we don't have any information, so I'm not sure it still deserves to have a blocker label.
The method handle natives resolve segfault?
I think it was the next one, maybe. I just saw it go by. No. It's from the user Ninja. It's the one I saw.
So yes, that's the segmentation. It's resolve.
Yeah, so I think we could take the blocker off that.
Agree, without data, we can't use it. All right. So given the state that we're in, it sounds like branching at the end of this week is probably not what we want to do.
Probably not.
Do we have a new target date for that branch?
I think we should revisit it week by week. We're in better shape next week, then we could consider it for the following weekend. Although we can't let it go too far. I think And like mid-February, I think we should branch anyways. We'll just have to double deliver after that.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. As long as we're being careful about what else is going in the meantime as well. Something particularly risky, especially as we get towards mid-February. Be careful about not picking that up in the branch.
Yeah, so we'll be relying on our committers who are merging the changes to call that out. If they think there's something going in that's risky, we could always pull it out of the branch after we create it.
Anything else that we want to cover over the 031 release?
I don't think so.
Do we have Shelley or someone else from Adopt to give us an update there? Len?
Hi, sorry, I was trying to find a mute button. So we did have CanOSP 3-day code sprint over last weekend, and we have 7 students from University of UBC, University of Alberta, and McGill. And so they are actually really excellent students. So they got their environment set up. They already had 8 PRs delivered, 7 that's under work in progress, and then they also did a presentation during the code sprint. So as for this term, they're gonna work. So this CanOSP is kind of a part-time one course for them, so they kind of working for us part-time, and we'll let them help with the Aqua-V certification piece and some enhancement piece in TRSS and then test pipelines. Great.
Thanks, Len.
No problem.
Adam, is there an update on the infrastructure?
Yeah, so we are just trying to finish up with the new AX machines at OSU. I think we're mostly on track to get those ready by the end of the month when IBM Garage machines go away. I'll call right after this to get the latest status, but it seems like we're in okay shape now. We did upgrade Jenkins core as well as all the plugins last Thursday night, I believe it was. And all the security patched on the OS and everything like that. So everything seems to be okay with that so far. That's about all I had.
Thanks, Adam.
Adam, could I ask about the Mac OS AR64 pipeline work?
Yeah, so we haven't progressed it, but I think we're close to ready. I did see an update from Kono this morning about removing that XJIT option.
Yeah, we have our, I mean, sort of the status on that is we fixed many of the problems that was preventing us from running many of the tests. So I think we are ready to get it. We are ready to have CI builds if they can be available. I don't know about if you do in the PR builds. I don't know about making Mac OS AR64 part of those. Maybe we have to do it separately. Like when you do a build all, it doesn't include it. That's what I'm trying to say. But I think we would like to get those builds as part of the PR testing if we can as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So I have that PR drafted to get it added in.
Yeah.
There was a question about the default. I think it was the default tar because it was picking up BSD tar instead of GNU tar, but I think we've resolved that. So I just have to check in with Raj and Joe to make sure everybody's on the same page and we're all set up, and then we can get that merged in. Whether or not we add it to all or not, I guess that's a question for Pete or the leads.
I would say not yet. I think it's a little bit early for it's still going to be early access, so we don't need that just yet. But just having the ability to launch those builds would be very helpful.
Yeah, there's actually a definition in our pipelines for all, so it's explicitly added or not, so that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Devin, is there an update on CMake?
No, not much new there. There's just some cross-compile stuff in OMR. Some of the stuff is needs review, and I'm just gonna go ahead and poke someone there to take a look at that. And then there's a little bit on the OpenJ9 side, which is waiting on the OMR stuff.
Thanks, Devin. Marius, is there a JIT server update? I don't see Marius on the call. So reach out to him offline. My next microJIT meeting is coming up in a couple of days. Toby, is there an update on the Snapshot restore?
Yeah, so we're making progress on adding new internal API capabilities. This will enable us to do things like fix up random instances or timers more efficiently than with the Java hooks. It also minimizes the amount of time we spend fixing up these instances on the restore side. Simultaneously, Eunice has been making efforts on getting restore to work in Docker containers without root permission, which is important because that's how most containers will be deployed. So he's making a lot of progress there. And Erwin's been looking at an issue we have with non-portable restore. Seems to be some interaction with some issue caused when we're attempting to do checkpoints while there's still a compilation occurring. So he's just working at that. And yeah, that's the update there.
I'll also add that Ashu's been looking at portability of some of the other pieces of the system in some of his experiments, and he's found that there are issues with basically any software that reads CPU ID on x86. So glibc is a good example of that, where it uses the CPU ID to figure out what instructions are available and then picks the appropriate versions of memcopy and memclear and memset and various functions. So to be truly portable, you also need the glibc tunables to try to pick the right versions of the functions that you want to have used, so that you pick the portable versions or the lowest level that you need. Something to be aware of there as well.
I think you mentioned that this is enabled in the latest glibc. This capability is in 2.34.
Yeah, so before that, there's a bug in glibc where there are some things that should be tunable or not.
Okay.
So you need at least that version to have the tunables apply in all the appropriate places.
And is this something that can be patched, like if we're not on the latest?
I believe he had a manual patch for it.
Okay.
Something to be aware of. Jack, do you have an update on the Project Loom efforts?
No, there's not much update this week.
Chang, do you have an update on the Panama efforts?
Yep. For Danko, In terms of phase 2 and 3, already merged the codes this morning, and for optical and primitive support, already finished updating most of the codes and test case against the latest API changes on second incubator. But there's still a problem with return pointer. I'm still working at it. Yeah, that's about it.
Just like to mention that I saw evidence today that they're moving the foreign linker code and the related code to this into a preview API. So this is moving out of JDK incubator and into Java Lang.
That's yeah, that's a Java 19, right? They plan to do that.
Yeah, I believe. Well, 18 is locked down at this point. So with that move happening now, the earliest it would be 19.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it should be updated after that.
And Daryl, you had mentioned some of the M1 work. Is there anything else you want to call out here?
Well, we had just resolved some of our last issues that was preventing us from doing builds and running many of the tests. I'm just working through some of the pull requests right now and getting those merged. And once we have all of those things landed, then we can hopefully enable the testing pipeline so that we can start doing some more thorough testing of it. And yeah, and then work on an early access binaries with the Semaru builds for JDK 18. So anyway, good progress there.
We had a meeting around the compressed ref support. Is this work without compressed refs, or is this with?
Yeah. So this is all a large heap, and we're going to be working on compressed refs or thinking of what the proper design and solution is there for later on this year, but it's not something that we have time to focus on at the moment.
Okay. Is there anything else that we want to cover today? All right, then. Thanks, everybody, and we'll have the next one of these calls February 1st.
Thank you.
Thanks.